say, Eric, 62% of Americans have no emergency fund. And I'm sure you've read statistics like that. I mean, it's scary, right?
Welcome back to For Entrepreneurs by Entrepreneurs, episode 17. I am Eric Verdi. With us this week is Alissa Locke, who's a good friend of mine. We've known each other for about a year now, maybe about a year and a half. Alissa hit me up. We went out, had coffee. At the time, she was, I'll do air quotes, a bigwig, and she was at State Farm, basically in charge of their agents, independent agents locally, and probably in a larger area like a Maryland, Virginia, PA area. And Alissa was reaching out to me because she had some positions open and knew that I knew a lot of people in the community, and if there was a way that help her out. But from that meeting, a friendship evolved. Like Alissa, like very sharp individual. We're from the same town here in Frederick. And just, I really kind of had a connection with her. And so recently she's gone out and started her own entrepreneur venture after many, many tries before the State Farm, and we'll get to that, Money Mentor Group, which is a consultant basically for entrepreneurs to help better utilize their funds, their strategies, how they look at their business financially. And here at For Entrepreneurs by Entrepreneurs, why we started this is I feel that every entrepreneur has a superpower, okay? You might be really good at Facebook ads. You might be really good at Google AdWords. You might be really good at copy. You might be really good at funnels. You might be really good at money, okay? You need to be good at one thing really, really well as an entrepreneur. And most of us, we're really good at what we do. We're not so good at the money aspect. So I'm thrilled to have with us today, Alissa, that's going to kind of fill in that gap here with an entrepreneur. And if you need help financially about planning, budgeting, strategy, Alissa is going to be our go-to entrepreneur financial consultant here. So I know that's a long-winded intro. So Alissa, thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm thrilled to be here.
So give our listeners, viewers, your backstory.
Sure. So you know me from when I was with State Farm, and as you said correctly, I was basically a business coach to 41 locations, independent contractor locations of State Farm throughout Western Maryland, Central Maryland, and a piece of West Virginia. But I've actually been an entrepreneur my entire life. I started in my early 20s. I had graduated from graduate school with a master's in public administration, worked in that field in a little cubicle for about 6 months, went home and cried every day, knew that was not for me. And so I I quit my job, I opened up the newspaper and basically took the first sales job I could find, and it was selling collection services. Door to door knocking, hard. And I ended up buying a franchise of the company in my 20s. So that was my first entrepreneurial venture. And I've done a number of entrepreneurial things throughout my career, including a startup in the early 90s called 1-800-CAR-SEARCH. I was a mortgage officer, which was a very entrepreneurial venture. I was a State Farm agent for a number of years in the Tysons Corner, Virginia area, and then worked for State Farm Corporate as a business coach to other entrepreneurs. And throughout each of these businesses that I had or was involved with, I saw that one of the biggest struggles that entrepreneurs had was managing their business finances on a day-to-day basis. Because entrepreneurs by nature, they want to go out and talk about their product or service, right? They're passionate about that. They want to build their business. Looking at the numbers, I don't think is something that comes naturally to an entrepreneur. And it is so much more complex than managing a personal budget. You know, your revenues change all the time, your expenses change all the time. And so having a coach to help you figure out systems and behaviors with your business financials was something that just came naturally because it's something that I had to learn to do. So I retired early from State Farm. I was very fortunate to be in a financial position to be able to do that. And I've always wanted to help entrepreneurs in this way. So I'm now a financial coach with Money Mentor Group, which is a financial coaching firm based here in Frederick. We work with individuals, couples, small business owners. I'm very, very excited to finally be doing this kind of passion project. I do get a lot of questions about what a financial coach is. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to take a minute to lay that out, because a lot of people scratch their heads and kind of say, well, what is that exactly? So financial coach, the way I define it, is we help individuals, couples, and business owners better understand their relationship with their money, meaning their money beliefs, their money emotions, maybe some of the baggage that they learned from their parents or their influences from social media and society, and how that impacts their behavior with their money. And once we understand that piece, then we can work on improving their behaviors with their money. So I like to say I help people understand why they do what they do with their money, and then figure out systems to have better money behaviors.
So when you're consulting, coaching a client, an entrepreneur, are you starting with a macro view of their financial outlook and then diving down to micro, or like you're spending way too much money on copier paper? Like, you're buying this paper and you're really buying this paper, or, all those pens you have over there that you spent $200 on, like, so are you like, what, overall, our strategy is to X, Y. So where are you going with people that you're coaching? You understand the question? Am I asking it correctly?
Yeah, no. I think I understand where you're coming at. So whether I'm working with an individual, a business owner, a couple, whatever, it's got to start with their why. And so when it comes to money, I'm gonna work with them to do some exercises to understand more about their personal relationship with their money. So here's what I mean by that specifically. We have some exercises that we can do to help them understand their money personality. So what I mean by money personality is, are they by nature a spender? Are they by nature a hoarder? They like to just hold on to their money. Are they what we call an avoider? In other words, they don't even want to deal with it. They want to deal with everything else in their business, but not their money, And so by figuring out that piece of it and what their money personality is, that will help us as I work with the entrepreneur to understand their money behaviors. If they have poor kind of spending habits or a bad relationship with their money, sometimes it's also good to figure out what's triggering some of that poor behavior. So one of the exercises, one of my favorite exercises that I do with new clients, is I have them track all of the purchases that they're making and what they're feeling at the time, the emotion that's connected to that spending. So in other words, let's say the business owner tracks their spending for several weeks, and they realize that every time they're feeling scared about the direction of their business or how their business is doing, they run out and spend a lot of money on, marketing without even thinking it through. Or they buy somebody, who they think can help them with their business, a really expensive dinner. We start to see some patterns that evolve. And so that's what I mean by better understanding, first and foremost, their relationship with their money. And then once we have that piece, then we start looking at what we call a spending and savings plan, where we really start to dig deep on what they're doing with their money.
Awesome. So back to your, to start with why consulting. So it's all your questionnaire and putting people in different quadrants or groups is almost like the Myers-Briggs of finance.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That was well put. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, I know when we were started out with COVID and the world shut down, I went back. I'm a small business owner myself. I went back and looked at, what expenditures, I have really had to tighten the belt. I would not consider myself a free spender. If I was on that spectrum, I would probably be more towards, I don't know about hoarder, but more towards very financially conservative. I know where we spend money, but I looked and we cut out like $800 a month just in stuff that wasn't really benefiting the business at the time, and or we just weren't using enough of. We weren't, much like our house. Like I have like the 2-year rule. Like if we haven't used something in 2 years, it's out. So I kind of did that with my business. If we're not currently actively using it, or maybe really haven't used it in the last 6 months, like we cut it. So what is it that you wanted to accomplish that led you on your journey from State Farm to financial coach?
Well, when I was with State Farm, one of the things that I observed as I was coaching, the State Farm agents who are small business owners, is that a lot of them really struggled to get a handle on what was coming in and what was going out. Some of them had some pretty significant business debt, and it really weighed heavily on them because they just couldn't figure out how to pay it off in a way that was really moving them forward. So I saw agents that had a lot of debt and really, struggled with that, and it just weighed heavily on their soul. I saw people who, were spending more than they were taking in every month. And so they ended up with, lots of credit card debt, or just, the fluctuations in what's coming in and going out when you're a small business owner. Nobody teaches you that. State Farm has a world-class training program for its agents, where they teach the agents about product and about marketing and about building a team and running an office, but they don't teach the agents about the managing the money part of the business. And a lot of our agents came from corporate America, or where they were earning a steady paycheck. And so managing the highs and lows and fluctuations and, variable, kinds of things that come with owning a business was new to a lot of these agents. And it was very painful for me because I got to know a lot of these agents really well, considered them friends. And it was painful to see the struggles that they were going through. It not only affected how they felt emotionally about their business, but it would spill over into their home life. And they would sometimes run into issues with their marriage and, managing their personal finances. And it was really painful to see. And because this was something that I was able to figure out in my life, through some trial and error, and it wasn't perfect at first, and I didn't do so well in the beginning, but I was able to figure it out. I thought this is a way for me to help people, not just State Farm agents, of course, but any entrepreneur who is struggling in this way.
I think that's an excellent point. I see people's finances every day in real estate doing what I do. And I think it's a systemic societal issue where people are spending money or saving money. It's on a curve. Like if you're in debt, like it's hard to get out of debt. Like
Yeah.
there's very specific, very tactical strategies that you can use to go from being in debt every month, to actually having a surplus every month. And I'm listening to you talk, And it's awesome because I think the service that you're providing, your business plan, your business model is definitely needed in the entrepreneurial world. You know, kind of you can throw a rock and hit 1,000 consultants that can teach you how to close, sell more, sell more, sell more, build a team, build this, do that, do that, do that. But without that financial piece, like I've seen many people in my industry that will come and just explode onto the scene, spend tens of thousands of dollars a month in advertising and get great business, and their business will ramp up. Like it'll go from here to here in a very short time.
Right.
But if there's a downturn or there's an issue, like they're literally living for that next sale.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right.
They don't have the foundation that they can do the highs and the lows of any market really we're in. You know, insurance is residual, but yes, you've got to have renewals and you've got to have all that kind of business, or you can have the sale to sale to sale to sale to sale. And that's really, you know, so I think the service that you're providing, I can see you on stage being like the Grant Cardone of financial coaching in a few years. So that's awesome.
So here's the thing, Eric, 62% of Americans have no emergency fund. And I'm sure you've read statistics like that. I mean, it's scary, right? And so there's a lot of buzz out there, articles written, media on, making sure that Americans build an emergency fund. And that's especially important today as we're going through COVID-19 pandemic. You know, a lot of people are out of work. The economy is, kind of in a tumult right now. So having a personal emergency fund, really important. For a business owner, though, one of the things that we help our business owner clients do is build a business emergency fund. A lot of people don't realize that you got to have a business emergency fund too, because you're going to have emergencies in your business. So, for example, your printer breaks, and all of a sudden you've got to buy a $2,000 printer. Where's that money going to come from? It's not something you've budgeted, for. Or your office floods, and maybe that's not covered by your insurance, and now you've got to buy new furniture or new carpeting or whatever. Or exactly what we're going through now, COVID-19 pandemic. Nobody could have anticipated this. So having an emergency fund for your business is one of the ways that you can kind of smooth out some of the highs and lows that come with figuring out, your money for your business.
Absolutely. So how did you find your superpower? Like what breakthrough, like what aha moment? You're like, you know what? I'm good. I'm capable financially as an entrepreneur. I need to share my expertise, my knowledge with others.
In my early 20s, frankly, I was pretty bad with money, I have to admit. I was working on commission, or I was self-employed at the time. And frankly, as soon as I earned more money, I found a way to spend it, because you can justify anything. I remember being in my late 20s, and I had, just had my first child. And I remember saying, oh, well, I'm a mother now. I need to buy a house. I can't live in an apartment. I'm a mother. I need to be a homeowner. So, went out and bought a house, even though at the time I really couldn't afford it, had to borrow the down payment from my then father-in-law, and really was not so great at managing money. I found myself in my early 30s, divorced, single mom, living on my own, and I was petrified. I realized I had debt. I didn't have a lot in savings. I felt like I was flying without a safety net. And I was scared that I wasn't going to be able to provide for my child, was never going to be able to retire someday. And it was kind of a wake-up call moment for me. And so I just realized that I've got to change my mindset around my money, and I've got to start doing some different things with my money if I'm ever going to reach my goals in life. And so I just, on a personal level, started to do some things differently. And as my career progressed, I got better and better at figuring out ways to manage those fluctuations in what was coming in and what was going out. And I realized that I'm pretty good at this. And I started kind of coaching other people who were also entrepreneurs. And this is even before State Farm, um, teaching them some of the lessons that I had learned, things like having a business emergency fund. A lot of my business owner friends had never really done that, never crossed their mind. So I started just teaching a little, sharing some of my knowledge. And when I got to a point that I, on personal level, was in a financial position where I could leave corporate America and do something entrepreneurial again, because that is in my heart and soul, I decided to take the leap into financial coaching, because I realized that I do have this kind of superpower. I love that word. It makes me feel like, Wonder Woman a little bit. So that's, really kind of the journey that I took.
So what impact or transformation has this had on your business? Obviously you're, 28, 30, living paycheck to paycheck, living beyond your means. When you get a commission check, you probably spend 1.25 of what you earned.
Right.
So what impact or transformation has this had on your business? And then maybe a transformation or a pivotal moment in your life?
So I had always intended to have I was going to say second career, but this would really be like a fourth or fifth career. I always knew that that was something that I wanted to do, but I did have an event in my life that was transformational that I will share. My husband, Ed, about 8 years ago, contracted something called Menieres Disease. This is, I had never heard of it before. It's a virus of the inner ear. Anybody can get it. And there's really two main symptoms that people have when they have Menieres disease. And he has what's called bilateral Menieres disease, meaning he's got it in both ears. So the first symptom is you go from a completely, hearing person to being completely deaf. So in a span of a couple years, my husband lost 100% of his hearing. And that rocked my world. I mean, that was earth moving for me and for us as a couple, because we couldn't even talk to each other because he couldn't hear what I was saying. Now, sometimes he might like that when he doesn't hear what I'm saying, but it's hard, right? He has since gotten what's called a cochlear implant, which is kind of a gadget that sits on the side of your head, and it's like a bionic ear. And so his hearing is better. It's still not great, but it's better. The other consequence of Meniere's disease is you've got vertigo 24/7. So for him, the way he describes it is that the floor is moving. So it affects his ability to walk. He can walk, but he's not steady on his feet. He doesn't really drive very much anymore. And so we sat down in a couple and we said, you know what? This is a pivotal moment for us as a couple. Do we want to live our life in a little bit of a different way so that we're together more? I'm not on the road out in, Cumberland, Maryland or West Virginia every day, so that if, he needs a little help in some way, I'm there, I'm around. I just wanted a little more flexibility in my schedule. And we realized that our finances we were in a place where I could leave that high-paying corporate executive job in order to start something else that was, never going to make me the kind of money I was making before, but that's okay. But I'm living my truth, as they say, living the life I want to live. And that moment, I realized that I wish everyone that I know and love could have the ability to get to a place where they could make decisions for their life in this way if they wanted to. And so a lot of me being a financial coach, frankly, feels like I am giving back to people that I care about. It sounds a little sappy now that I say it out loud, but I do believe that when you have your finances in order, the power and confidence that it gives somebody is just huge.
I totally agree. I don't know how many people I run into that don't have their finances in order, and then you'll see the ones that do. And typically what I see, and you would probably attest to this, is they're just normal people.
Oh yeah.
They're business owners, but they're not driving the Mercedes, or I don't know if you have a Mercedes. If you do, I apologize. Um, and leasing a vehicle and making unsound financial decisions. They're the ones that are frugal and are driving used cars and don't go to Starbucks 15 times a month. Um, I think we all make a choice in life, and especially financially, to either, there's consequences to every choice we make. And when I teach my kids, like, there's consequence when you do this, like this could happen, or this is going to happen. Or if you don't do this and you don't clean your room, you don't get your gaming device for the next hour, whatever it is. I could parent a little bit stricter. If I was as good parenting as I am financially, my kids would be off the chart, because I do know that every financial decision that you make has a consequence.
Right.
That's my little rant. So let's do a deep dive here. Okay, do you want to
Sure.
share your screen?
Sure. Okay.
All right, so Alyssa's going to share her screen here and give, basically a blueprint of how she would help entrepreneurs, business owners kind of walk through, like we talked about in the beginning, the macro of, hey, here you are financially, what's your financial picture, and how do we clean it up? Like, how do we tidy up that dirty room that you have? Like, let's put that dirty laundry away, and let's really clean up your room, i.e. your financial picture. So I'm gonna let you lead here.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of budgeting type software out there. There's tons of it. There's ones you pay for, ones that are free. I mean, there's a ton of tools out there. And I don't even like to say the word budget, because that's a little bit of a dirty word. Nobody likes to budget. That is so not fun. So I like to call it a spending and saving plan. Just a little different, nuance to it. But there's a lot of resources out there. But what I found is that there aren't a lot of resources out there that work well if the money coming in and the money going out are fluctuate drastically, or have the potential to fluctuate drastically. They just aren't designed to kind of deal with the scenario that an entrepreneur deals with every single month. The other struggle that I have, and a lot of entrepreneurs have, with a lot of the budgeting, kind of software or tools that are out there, is they take a lot of work. You constantly have to go in, you got to look at it, you got to tweak, you got to put in your new numbers, you got to track this. And entrepreneurs by nature, like I said before, they want to be out promoting their business. They want to be building their business. This part of the looking at the money, that doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. So I thought there's got to be something out there that's simple, easy to manage, and works well for somebody whose income fluctuates. And so Money Mentor Group had a tool that they had been using with their clients for years. And that tool, actually, where they worked with individuals, actually, I made some quick tweaks to it, and it works beautifully for managing a business's kind of spending and savings plan. So I'll kind of walk you through this, okay?
Sure.
So it's divided into a couple of different categories. The first category is where you input your fixed and recurring monthly expenses, and we divide the monthly expenses into the first half of the month and the second half of the month. You don't have to do it this way, but in my example, I've divided it into the first half of the month and the second half of the month, with the understanding that the entrepreneur may want to take home a paycheck for themselves twice a month, or if they have vendors that, pay them, twice a month, or whatever the case may be. So all you do here real simply is you put in the expenses that are due in the beginning of the month. And so I've just stuck some things in here: your rent, your electric, your phone, and these are fixed expenses. I highly recommend with your utilities that you get on a plan where you pay the same amount every month. Because again, the whole point of doing this is to try to smooth out some of these fluctuations, which make it so hard to manage. And if you call your utilities, your phone company, your electric, your water, whatever, all of them will have a plan where you can pay a flat monthly rate. They just kind of average it out. And then the next year they look at your bill and, it may be a little higher or a little lower depending on your actual usage. So you put in your phone, you put in your salaries if you've got, let's say, some employees, and let's say you're paying yourself. So again, I just stuck some things in here so we could look as an example. And then you take the second half of the month and you put in the bills that, again, are fixed. They're the same all the time. And then the date that it's paid. And so every month, you just look at this on the first of the month, and you're going to pay all of these bills that are coming due the first half of the month. And then you look at this the second half of the month, and you pay all the bills that are due the second half of the month. Okay, so it's easy peasy to manage because you know what the bills are. You're not going to forget anything because you put them in once and you're done and you pay those bills. Now we get into your non-recurring and variable recurring expenses. So this is where people get tripped up, okay? They forget about things that are either annual expenses. So they pay them every year, but it comes due in, May or September, and you're like, oh, I forgot, I've got to pay this bill. Where's that money going to come from? So for example, your business insurance, right? Let's say you pay that every, what do I have that in here? Let's say you have that every September. So September comes and you owe, $1,500. Where's that money going to come from? So you've got some of these expenses that either are non-recurring or they're variable. And so with this method, you list out all of these expenses, you figure out a monthly amount that you're going to need to sock away so that when that bill is due, you've got a pot of money to pay that bill. And so you take your annual, you divide it, put in monthly, and every month you put this amount in a separate account so that you have the money to pay for it, okay? And then the last section is what I call your daily spending. So let's say this is money that, you just want to kind of have on hand for some daily, expenses. You're going to put, so I put here business lunches as what I wanted to designate, and $400 a month. And this is money that you're just going to pay for with a debit card. Again, you're going to put it in a separate account every month. This is my daily spending. You pay for it by a debit card so that when it's gone, it's gone. If you're at the 20th of the month and you've spent all that money on business lunches, you got a brown bag at the rest of the month because your money's gone. And then the last section is where you're going to put money away every month for your long-term financial goals. So let's say my goal is to buy a building. Got some money in there to put away towards that. Let's say my long-term financial goal is I want to save for retirement. You're going to put money away every month. So I'm going to flip to where we actually see this all pan out. Okay, so all of the money that you input on that first tab is going to translate here and calculate for you on this second tab. So as you can see, it breaks it down for you. And so you're going to have an operating account where your income comes in and your fixed expenses are paid out of that operating account. And then you're going to have that separate account I talked about for your daily spending. You pay that for a debit with a debit card. And then you've got in the light green area, the amount of the bills you need to pay. The kind of peach area is that variable amount, and then the light blue area is the transferring the long-term savings. And so the beauty of the system is that you're putting money in a separate account for all those things you forget about all the time, or the things that change all the time, and you've got money to pull from, so it's never a surprise. And so really the only thing that you're tracking is that daily spending, and you have a finite amount of money. So this system is really easy. It's kind of hard to really explain this in depth in a couple quick minutes on a podcast, but this just gives you a little bit of a taste of some of the ways that we help entrepreneurs manage their money. There's also a section on here, just want to point out, where you put money away for your taxes, because that's another area where entrepreneurs, get tripped up. The taxes are due quarterly, and how am I going to have money to pay for those? So it budgets that in, so you're putting a little money away every month for that.
So I think that's, an awesome exercise that, yeah, you're right. You can do this personally. You can do this if you own a business. I know, I've been doing, not out like this, but kind of in my head, like I pay my bills on the 5th and the 20th. Like I know what's due on the 5th and what's due on the 20th. So are you teaching this to anyone? Any programs, sites, courses you want to promote, talk about before we wrap up here, Alissa?
Sure. I am actually launching a workshop for entrepreneurs, a 3-part workshop for entrepreneurs, which will cover the first section is helping them understand their relationship with their money. So I'm going to take them through some of the exercises I talked about with that. The second section is really showing them this spending and savings plan, and they will get this that they can use as a tool for them to manage their finances. And then the third workshop is I really help them with understanding some money behaviors. So we really go into methods of paying down debt, if they have that, methods of building up an emergency fund, how to set some long-term financial goals and manage to that. And so that'll be rolling out mid-July. If anyone listening to this podcast wants to make sure that they learn about it, one, they can go to www.moneymentorgroup.com. And there'll be a place there where they can sign up for the workshop. They can also email me directly at Alissa, which is ALISSA, at moneymentorgroup.com. I'll say it again, ALISSA at moneymentorgroup.com. I'm also going to give out my cell phone. People can just call me directly. My number's 571-419-4770. 571-419-4770. I am on Instagram. For anybody else who's on Instagram, I'm there as Your Money Mama, M-A-M-A, Your Money Mama. And they can contact me any way that they'd like to, and either work with me individually or learn more about that workshop.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us this week. I think, you're providing an awesome service and awesome structure to business owners and entrepreneurs, because like you said, like you've seen over the years, you've had 41 agents at State Farm that I'm sure probably, we're not going to say anything, but I'm sure probably 75% of them didn't manage their money well. That's typically what we see in the world in general, is that, a smaller percentage than a large percentage need help financially. That's why there's so many financial coaches out there. So I'm proud of you. You're doing a good thing.
Thank
Keep it
you.
up. Thank you so much for joining us this week.
All right. Thank you, Eric. Take care.
That's Alissa Locke, Money Mentor Group, episode 17 of For Entrepreneurs by Entrepreneurs. Go to the YouTube page if you're actually listening to this. It's EVTV videos, but there will be a link here to actually look at the spreadsheet, look at the financial analysis that Alissa provides. It's not complicated, definitely not complicated, but it is very powerful when you have a hold on your financial picture and really what your expenditures are a month. So episode 17, and we are out.